Hello, everybody, and welcome back to, the official Coast to Coast podcast. Of course, brought to you by TeamCP, your endurance coaching specialist, the podcast that is designed to help everybody out there get from the famous West Coast all the way across to the East Coast, and by all the means and modes of personal travel as it'll go, by running and biking and kayaking and all those fabulous things that we do when this time comes around. Richard Greer, welcome back. Episode 6, and it's actually season 6, episode number 2, because we already had a little prequel earlier on in the year.
Yeah, we got excited, didn't we, after race day? So we needed to get fizzed up and get one on the board earlier. But yeah, looking forward to episode 2 and basically the run into race day now. So really good to have a look at those summer footage of race days and a nice blue Waimak, the mountain run, all those things. It is the coast to coast. So we're in the depths of winter coming out of that. And it is nice to have that optimism that summer's going to come around, because it's been a cold one, isn't it?
It has been a cold one. It's not been too bad. In fact, I was cycling across the Waimakariri Bridge the other day from Kaipoi and the other weekend, and noticed a heap of cars down the bottom down there with kayak racks on the top. So plenty of people obviously out and about, getting in the water and getting some time on the water during the winter. So that was great to see.
Yeah, so good. And the river's been really low. It's been pretty dry across the course of winter. So it's been playing around 30 odd cubics, the Waimak. So there's not a lot of water in the lower reaches down our way. So it's awesome to see. And I think that's one thing around winter. The weather is often reasonably settled. It's coming into springtime when we get a bit of nor'west weather, and the river goes up and down, a bit of snow melt and things, and things starting to get a bit more interesting in the river. So yeah, really cool to have people getting out and developing their skills, which is what the coast to coast is all about, isn't it? Skills to be able to get through the terrain.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's not a come from the couch and roll up to the start line kind of event, is it? There's plenty of events that we've probably all winged our way through along the way, but probably the coast to coast is not one of those things you're just going to wing it. You really do need to hone down on some of those disciplines and take advantage where you can. It's certainly been a bit cold to be out on the bike lately.
I was going to say, when you mentioned it hasn't been that cold, I was like, have you been outside lately? Have you just been in front of the heat pump in the Angus? What's been going on?
Got the heater going hard out here right now. Actually, I have to say, I was actually up in the snow last Saturday on the bike. Yeah. So started in a minus 3 or 2 degrees or whatever it was, and then by the time we'd climbed sort of 700 meters of altitude there, we were up on the snow. So that was kind of cool. Always good to get a little winter ride in and really feel the depths of winter. And like they say, there's no bad weather. There's just bad clothing choice, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. Good to hear that there's some vertical meters being done and brushing the cobwebs off the bike. Pretty keen to hear how your training is going, Angus. We mentioned in the last podcast that we're teaming up for 2025. We've managed to get a bit of an anchor man, a pretty reasonable kayaker. Old man knees, my knees are going to get across the mountain run, and we've signed you up for the bike ride. So how's the training going?
It's not a frozen screen. Look, I am in. It's for me. This is just as hard as it is for a lot of other you out there, that you're juggling work commitments, juggling family commitments, and all those sort of things. And sometimes it really is hard to get some training in, hard to get some of that consistency in, and probably like I say, the weather is one of those things too. The cold doesn't help, does it? Consistency being one of those things that I am probably lacking in. Richard, I'm managing to get a reasonably good ride in the weekend and occasionally too, but the other couple of weeks ago there, I did travel with my bike and managed to get a little bit of gravel riding in Wellington, actually, of all places to be. So little bits and pieces going on, mate.
This is a live team debrief of how we're actually tracking. We haven't chatted about this, so this is quite good. Yeah, so I've been getting a bit of heat on at home with Nate, a 16-year-old son who's actually entered a 3-person team in with his mate Ben, and his uncle, my brother Leighton, is going to be paddling. So and Nate's biking. So yeah, what are we thinking? Nate's definitely talks a big game, but how are you feeling about that? A 3-person head-to-head.
Well, Nate has definitely the other day when I was at your place, Nate was definitely throwing down the gauntlet there. He is definitely talking a big game, and don't you worry, buddy. We won't let him. Actually, I don't know what the rules of engagement are there. That'll be a tough choice for you, won't it? Like, am I to drop him, or am I to let him, do his thing, or like, is it child abuse? Is it what is it?
Are we live? Can we chat about that like for real? No, you just full send, Angus. Full send. I don't expect you should not be hanging on the back of his wheel. That's all. That's all on.
Oh, good. Well, we'll see. We'll see how that goes along, and it'll be great to see how the next generation Greer steps up and gets his first taste of what is the Kathmandu Coast to Coast. Especially considering, Richard, you've been a part of this for 20-something years, some way, shape, or form, and it is going to be really cool to see that next generation of your family come through and get their first taste.
Yeah, it was. Well, Nate was one when Tash, my wife, and I did it as a team, actually, and he was in the camper van cruising along. So yeah, it's been, I guess, part of his life for all of his life, and part of Team CP. We started this in 2006, and he's born in 2008. So I guess that gives you a bit of an idea about where he's come from, what he's doing. We've been doing a group Zwift session, and he's been doing it beside me recently, actually. And I have to say, he does pack a sprint. But so what I'd say, Angus, is don't leave it to the sprint. I think you can get rid of him before the sprint, and I think you'll be fine.
Go early.
Go early. Yeah.
Well, actually, we've got a few things that we can talk about that are related around the bike. We can talk about that a bit later on the podcast about how we're going to go about a few tactics there, and as a three-person team, because I'm hoping there's going to be some things that I'm not going to have to do throughout the weekend and purely just ride my bike. But but nonetheless, we've got a great show ahead of us for episode. For our second episode here in season 6. So Hannah Lund going to join us on the show, Rich.
Yes, so Hannah, super excited to have a chat to Hannah, actually. So she started her coast-to-coast journey 5 years ago with taking on the 2-day, and over that time has risen through the ranks. And last season, I guess you'd call it, 2024, she placed second in the World Multisport Champs behind Simone Meyer, which is pretty awesome, and a stacked women's field. So, yeah, let's have a chat to Hannah and get a feel for how she did, how she trains, what she does, and, what her plans are going forward.
Good evening, Hannah. How are you? Oh, we've lost our sound. Are you there, Hannah?
Hannah, come in.
She was all there before backstage. She was all talk. Now she can't hear us. Oh, let's just give her a minute there, Richard, to sort.
Yeah.
Sort her technicalities out. We'll bring her back in.
She's definitely
she's
there.
Just trying to work her way around it. She can hear us in the background, but can't talk. We were talking to her, like I said, just like 2 minutes ago. We were. But it was great to see. Like last year's women's field was probably one of the best we've seen in a while. It was a great race. Probably one of the feature parts of the whole race was the longest day women's. It was some incredible athletes there that are and more coming through as well, which is great.
And it's been that way in the last few years, hasn't it? Like some really tight racing going on, and it's just super hard to pick. Simone's definitely dominated, and she's definitely that's the level that you need to be at just across the board. She's so strong all the way through, but so to be able to compete with her and compete with the rest of the field is pretty amazing. And Hannah originates from Methven, your hometown as well, Angus.
My old hometown down there, and of course, race director Glenn Curry from there as well. So
yes.
It's got quite a few good coast to coast routes as Methven.
It certainly has.
And a few
the other thing.
Multi-sport events that have been that are actually in and around that district as well, and have been for over the years that we were lucky enough to have all those cool little multi-sport races leading up to the coast. Absolutely,
yeah. No, there's lots going on, and I guess that's the thing, isn't it? The environment. What's close by, Mount Somers, Mount Hutt, all that sort of thing, the Rakaya River, the Waimak's too far away, the Rangitana diversion race is just there, so that does make a difference. And obviously the school a community make a big difference of getting people involved in the event.
Now I'm just going to give this a go here and see if Hannah, can you hear us this time, Hannah?
She can hear us, but we can't seem to talk to her. It might be a setting there on her. Might need to go down to settings and select the microphone on her computer. Maybe if Hannah, we organise that. The other key part of the show tonight, we've got some a bit of Q&A that we're going to go through. We've got a number of questions that people have asked, so maybe we could jump into that do you think,
Yep.
Angus? And Hannah can
Yep.
have a bit of a
Let's
play with.
see if she can't get her microphone going in the background there so that we can have a chat to her, because we're really looking forward to catching up with Hannah. But yeah, like we have had a number of questions come through
Mm.
actually for tonight. What do we got here?
Should we start off with this one? So I've got on our notes there, Angus, is I'd love to hear the little tips and tricks that an athlete can do to make their day a little bit easier, such as stuff to take on the bike in case of a crash, what sort of pedals to use as the support crew isn't allowed to change them, what to do to stop your pedal handle getting too slippery, little things like that. So
Now, can I start there with that your support crew isn't allowed to change them, but we're definitely allowed to change pedals between stages.
Yes, you're just not like, yeah, I'm not quite sure where that question come from, but yeah, like between stages, support crew has access to your bike, and the support crew are going to check your bike, check your tires, make sure the gears are still running, making sure the brakes aren't rubbing, etc. So you actually can change your pedals throughout the course of the day. Obviously, there's no allowance. You can't have any assistance on course while someone's riding their bike, but between those times, obviously the support crew need to transport your bike. So yeah, you can change your pedals as much as you want in that time.
Yep. No, totally.
Yep.
Sunscreen's a really good one because it's actually a really long day out there. And actually, if you're doing the 2-day, the last thing you want to do is get burned on day 1 and have that sunburn come back day 2.
Yes.
But also, of course, as we know, you sunburn. Well, the body fights pretty hard once you're sunburnt, right, to try and repair that. So your body will use up a shed ton of energy while it's trying to deal with that sunburn, and also with it brings other heat related issues along the way. So sunscreen's a definite trick to be making sure. And it's cold and it's dark when you start in the morning, but every year, Richard, I watch you put your sunscreen on and nearly pitch blackness and go, well, I don't think you'll need that for a while, but every year it comes in handy, right?
That's right. I am one of the whitest people out there, so yeah, I do need a bit of sun cream. So it doesn't hurt to sort of put an extra layer on, does it? Just smear it on a little bit heavier. But I think also with the race, people are out there all day and they're sweating and things, so it doesn't hurt through those transition areas just to get your support crew just to slap on a little bit more. It might not look pretty straight away, but it all sort of all disappears over time. So yeah, a bit of a reapplying sun cream. And I think one of the key bits also is, I guess, especially for longer stay athletes, not so important for 2 days, but into the boat, you don't want to be putting your own sun cream on, because that's where your paddle can get slippery if you're holding onto your paddle and you've just been smearing sun cream all over yourself. So that could be a time when your support crew actually throws a bit of sun cream around and helps you out in that space. Obviously, if you're putting your own sun cream on, riding your bike, and then getting in your boat, that's probably not an issue, but more the longer stays. Gloves
or no gloves on the paddle?
I'd say no gloves. Most people wouldn't have gloves. I think that there'll be some blisters go on there, but that's just part of how much have you trained, really, isn't it? In terms of some calluses and things going on there. But you can feel and grip the paddle so much easier when when it's just your hands. So I think that's really important. It's just part of getting used to it, really. Yep.
On the bike, because look, day 1, regardless for everybody, whether it's 1 day or 2 day, but that first bike ride, a really important part to set you up for the day is obviously to make sure that you hydrate and you eat plenty on that first bike leg, because as we've talked about many times before, getting depleted so early on, you'll never catch that back up along the way. You'll never put that fuel back in if you don't get it. And while you're on the bike, it's the perfect time to do it. So things like top tube bags to put your snacks, something that's easy to get at, and then it's right there in front of you as well. What do you use, Richard, over the years? What have you found that works?
Yeah, I find that little top tube bag, it might not be the most sexiest thing for riding your bike, might not make your bike look, I'm sure you're cringing while I'm putting my sun cream on and putting my top tube bag on, but it does mean it's easy access to food and some treats and bits and pieces there. And again, for all the bike rides, really, I think that's good. Sometimes a camelback can also be really useful too, as one of those little things that means you don't have to reach down for drink bottles, and you can just either stay in your aero position, or if you're longer stay on the way home, or riding in a bunch and you can just have a quick slurp, probably means you're actually going to drink more and fuel your body more, as you say. So I think that's also quite useful as well. And that's all sort of comes down to those bike skills as well. That's super important. making sure that you keep yourself safe around that. One of the other things around the mountain run that could be quite useful is gaiters. Some people use them, some people don't. Depends on if you're changing your shoes or whether you're keeping your shoes on for the sort of the first part of the day potentially. Back in the old days, when I was at 2001, my first race, I think it was a Steve Gurney tip to sew some lycra gaiters onto your shoes, and it does make a difference not to have all that shingle in your shoes and things. There is much better gaiters that are actually available in stores and things these days than what we're doing is trying to actually sew those gaiters onto my shoes that we were doing one year. But to me, the other tip I'd give to that offsets that is make sure you keep stuff simple. Sometimes we can spend so long doing those little tricky finicky type bits that will make your day easier. These days I don't use gaiters or anything like that. There's a bit of gravel that gets in your shoes, but just run hard and it'll be done soon enough. So keep it simple, but also what are some of those things that's important?
Sounded like that was one of those Steve Gurney innovations that he was become so famous for throughout the coast to coast.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, and that's one of the things he's done so well, and it's great to be innovative. That's one of the cool things about this race. You can kind of think around a little bit more. One of the next question from David, he said, "I'd be keen to hear about gear. What do you wear on each of the legs to start the day, and what do you take with you?" There's an interesting one. So answering that, David, one of the things is tri-shorts. So obviously you need to make sure that you're comfortable with riding your bike and what do they feel like in the boat. A windbreaker vest is something that I'll often wear. It's often pretty chilly down at the beach and it just takes the wind off your chest. Arm warmers are also really useful. These things aren't in the handbook necessarily, but really useful just to keep you a bit warm. And then the arm warmers you can roll down and take off before the run leg if you want to as well. So that's probably the main bit. The old windbreaker vest is a key thing that I would go for. I
think your tri-shorts is a good one, and we say tri-shorts because traditionally they've got less of a padding, they've got less of that chamois built in, enough to be comfortable enough on the bike, but allow you to run a whole lot freer. Obviously, anyone that's tried to run with a full set of cycling bibs on knows there's a bit going on there. So, so the tri-short is a really good one. I think you're right with the arm warmers. They're useful probably no matter what leg you're on along the way. Really easy to deal with the temperature changes that, like you say, you start early in the morning, it's cold, you get the blood flowing and you get a bit warmer, you just pull them down. And again, as you go up and over the hill, the temperature changes quite a lot up through there. So a really useful, quick way to keep some heat or to regulate some heat, really, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Last couple of years I've actually raced in a tri-suit on day one in the 2-day, which has worked quite well, really, to be honest. Fits well and is nice and comfortable as you're running over that mountain run. On day two, again, I will wear cycle shorts, actually bib shorts, as you mentioned, because it's pretty much a sit-down type of a day, to be honest. You ride your bike, you run a K down the hill, paddle all day, and then you ride your bike home. So try shorts, the same pair on the whole day. And basically it would start in a thermal top with a cycle, like a vest over top. And then once you get to the boat, pull the vest off, most probably, unless the weather is horrendous. And then you've got your thermal top to paddle in. And then once you get out of the boat, I've put a cycle top on generally to ride home is generally the rule of thumb of how I've done things in the past.
I always think the kayak is the trickiest one to get the clothing right because you arrive there sometimes and you're quite warm because you've been doing what you've already warmed up. But again, the weather changes so dramatically through that gorge, and it's just not the easiest discipline to be able to take clothes on and off, is it? So, but getting cold when the water spray starts coming in through the rapids and things can put your body under a whole lot of stress as well once you start shivering and things. So that's probably the trickiest one to get right.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the last few years, the weather has been, especially for the longest days, just the way it's gone. And the back end of the 2-day is really, there's some good weather changes that have happened and people have got proper cold. So so that's definitely something to factor in as part of that as you go. Yeah, I think it's just that experience, isn't it? Having done a bunch of paddle sessions and you know what's comfortable and what's not. So then you can make better decisions on race day about what works well. For me, I've got a neoprene spray deck that has a neoprene middle. So generally that keeps me pretty warm to the top. But hey, you're better off being slightly too warm rather than slightly too cold, I think, for a lot of it, because you're going to actually concentrate better, especially if you're a little bit nervous. And then if you are unlucky enough to go for a bit of a dip, hopefully you'll not cool down too much and you're able to keep your race going.
I thought somebody might have asked a question about what you do when you need to do number ones on the boat, Rich.
I think that's an interesting one, actually. I think it probably depends if you've hired your boat or not, whether it's yours. So whether you actually just go, let it all hang out, or whether you pull over to the sideline and have a little comfort stop. And it's in the boat. It's not a bad thing just to actually pull over and stretch your legs for a moment, have a half time, and then I think you will paddle a lot better for the second half rather than just sort of slugging it away the whole time. It's hard yards. It's a long time in the boat, I think, and that's one of the things with the weather choices. The weather does change over the course of 4 or 5 hours that you're doing it, 6 hours maybe. So definitely a pretty good challenge there.
If you don't pull over, is it courtesy to give the people at the end of the paddle the heads up?
I think that is courtesy, isn't it? Or if it's pre-planned sort of thing, just make sure that they know just that there's more going on than just a bit of sports drink.
Good. Yeah. Hey, look, we've still got a few more questions we get through, and we could probably talk for hours about tricks and all sorts of things to do with the coast to coast. And we've got plenty more time here tonight, and then we've got more podcasts to come. But let's see if Hannah's managed to fix some technological issues there. Hannah, can you hear us now?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
And we can hear you as well, Hannah. I think you could hear us before, but we struggled back. So you've done well. I was going to ask early on, are you nervous? But I think that's probably a big old yes. Like, oh my God, what's going on? My race has started and everyone else has run away and I'm still standing here.
Yeah, this is terrifying. Yeah, heart rate.
Yeah, excellent. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us. Awesome to have you as part of the show, and great to be able to sort of share your story. Obviously, it's been quite a journey over the last 5 years of starting in the 2-day and building things back up. But and want to sort of get through all that stuff. But do you want to just take us all the way back to the start? How did you get into multisport? What were some of the drivers to say, yep, that's me, I'm going to have a crack at that? Because obviously it's been, over the last 5 years, a big part of your life.
Yeah. I think back when I was a kid, there was a little local multi-sport event called the Ikatea Challenge. Started in town, finished at the beach, bike, run, kayak.
Yep.
And so I think I just grew up sort of watching my parents take part, and when I was old enough, I took part. The event no longer exists, which is pretty sad. But yeah, I think that's where I learned about the coast to coast, because the big hitters were often just on a bit of a training run for the coast to coast. So I think that way back when I was quite little kind of ignited this idea. But it wasn't really until I'd finished vet school that I sort of thought, oh, maybe I could give that a go. Yeah.
Nice work. And did you do other sport before this? What other things did you do sort of through school and while you were studying, etc.?
Yeah. I played hockey in school. I wasn't really that good at it. I was actually probably more of it as a kid, more of like a performing arts kid, really. I did do quite a lot of cycling, but when I compare what I called cycling then to what I think cycling is now, Danny Vert High School didn't have a cycling team. It was sort of, I just rode with my mum on the weekends, really.
Yeah, cool.
I did a lot of tramping. Yeah, it was like into the outdoors. I wouldn't say really into competitive sport. When I went to university, I got a bit more into running, trail running. It was more for my sanity, probably, really, or to sweat out a hangover and get back studying. So that's probably my background.
Yeah, good. I think that last sort of comment, there's quite a bit in that. I think a lot of us sort of start sort of our endurance sport background in a similar sort of fashion as that. So you've raced the event 5 times over, and you started off with the 2-day. Tell us a bit about your preparation. This I guess podcast is a bit about training and preparation and things. We want to talk about those things. So how has your preparation developed over those past 5 years for you?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Well, for starters, if you're on here listening to this podcast, you're like way ahead of me on my first 2 day, because I think I probably, then the event wasn't selling out. I probably entered about now, and then put it on the back burner. I think I booked in a grade 2 course in October, and got the fright of my life actually when I realized what an undertaking I had to get prepared for this event. So I think I kind of thought, like I said to you, like I'd ridden my bike quite a bit through school. I had an old road bike, just an aluminium frame, like that'll do the job. We've been on like some kayaking holidays as a family, but in a multi-sport boat, it proved a bit more difficult. I think, my build up from my first 2 day was I remember spending a lot of time kayaking, trying to learn the skills. It definitely didn't come naturally or easily to me. I was very fortunate to have a lot of guidance from like Paul Eames at Arlestone. I think I was sort of just there every weekend, but I don't know if I'd really call it training. It was more like surviving. So
what was the expectation in that first one, Hannah? What was it? Right. So it was just like many, like thousands of people before you, and that will continue after. It was the old New Zealand rite of passage, the old I'm going to go and complete this event that so many people have talked about and done, and just see what it's about. Is that pretty much what the first one was?
Yeah, totally. I was just stoked to be there. It was an incredible journey. I met all these people on the way. It was terrifying. Can I even do this? But I was pretty clueless. I was pretty rookie. I think I sort of I was reflecting on this recently, and I bought a boat for $200 from one of my parents' friends. I think I borrowed all my kayak gear from some other friends. I had an old bike, had some running shoes. I turned up to the race, and it turns out you need 2 pairs of running shoes. So, hot tip. Thankfully, my support crew had the same size feet.
Wow.
And I think another sort of funny memory from the first coast was it was probably like a week before the event, and one of my friends, Aaron, who lent me a lot of gear, he said, if you got a foot pump in your boat. And I was like, foot pump? Oh, he's like, yeah, like everyone has one of them. You need one of them. I'll send some stuff down. And I thought, oh yeah, cool. And you sort of touched on this before maybe. And so I installed this foot pump. But I just thought it just seemed like a really fantastic idea because my boat wasn't actually watertight. So I was quite shocked when I learned what a foot pump was really for. You get the picture. Yeah. Anyway,
just installing away, happy as.
It was epic. I had such a fun time. And somehow I finished third that year in the 2-day event. And I had zero expectations. So that was really exciting. And I think I walked away from that thinking, wow, maybe I could be kind of good at this. So that sparked the next one.
Yeah,
I bought another boat and I got some gear and I actually did some training and I did this. I could actually be kind of handy at this.
Yeah. Do some research, listen to some podcasts. So from there, I guess I thought, right, well, I think I was probably a pretty strong runner and biker. But I struggled with the paddle by my summer of survival. But anyway, I was loving it. I finally, something had switched. It had gone from this terrifying thing I had to do because I'd entered this race to something I was just, thriving on. So I thought, time to get a faster boat. But back then I was still pretty tight and I didn't want to spend too much money. And so anyway, I upgraded to an Opus, and that cost me $900. And I spent a summer trying, paddling it, and working really hard at that. And it actually went really well most of the summer. I felt like I was doing all of that training rather than surviving. And it wouldn't have. Back then, I lived in the North Island, and I think I came down December, January to get on the course and check it out. And I did a river trip, and that was my first river trip in my new fast boat. And it was horrific. Oh, it was so bad. Yeah, and I don't know, none of you have probably experienced this yet who are listening, but yeah, I was that one on the trip that no one ever wanted to go paddling with again. In fact, it was so bad. It was so bad that Sam Manson actually got me out of my boat, and he paddled it, and I paddled his out.
There's a good story.
Yeah, that's good.
It was really bad. Yeah, it's not.
How was his boat? Was that better?
Oh, it was way better. Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
right.
I think that was like a shadow or something. Yeah. Fantastic.
Okay, good. So Opus, did you sell that? Managed to get that sold for 900 or more before race day?
Not quite before race day, but I did. Yeah, I sorted that one out. But it was a bit of a panic. It was getting close. I thought, and I guess different to the prior year, I did have some expectations this year. I had a few more clues, and I was eyeing up a higher spot on the podium. So I guess different to my first experience where I had zero expectation, I had a lot of expectation. That year I was training. I wanted to win the 2-day.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a panic, and I realized, well, this is terrible. I can't paddle this boat. I'll just paddle what I used to paddle, which was the Swallow. But I also knew now that I don't even know how they let me paddle a leaky boat, and I didn't think that boat would survive another run of the WIMAC, so I needed a new one. So I found a new one, and I was trying to be a bit more prepared, and I came down the week before the race, and plan was to get some time on the river in my new boat, which I'd picked up in Christchurch. But the river flooded that year. And so I never got on the river, and I did get on my boat, but not on a river. And as a consequence, I didn't actually know that the rudder was broken. So another hot tip, test your gear before race day.
It's easy done though, especially in the kayak, because the kayak, like a bike, you get your bike checked from the bike shop and you take it in and they check it and that's fine. Whereas it's not really the kayak shop to go and take your boat into. And generally you're sort of like, well, there's not too many moving parts to get it really go to wrong, but often you don't even look down through the middle of your boat to look at your foot pegs. And those rudder cables, etc., can easily sort of fray and break. So yeah, that is a very good tip to make sure things are actually all intact and strong, and make sure they're going to hopefully stay in one piece for one more trip down the river.
Yeah, totally. Especially when you're in the second-hand market and you're just starting out. You don't want to spend heaps of money. Yep. I mean, there's plenty good second-hand boats out there, but yeah, make sure all the working parts are working. Ask someone who knows.
Yeah, that's right. So how did you go year 2? How'd that go after that preparation?
Year 2, I came third again.
Oh, did you? Okay. So that was from a high of I'm fizzing and this was amazing because I got no expectations through to I'm almost a bit disappointed with that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So that's another lesson in expectations, isn't it? Yeah. To make matters worse, I actually in the final transition, I got in a bit of a fluster. I forgot my bib and I hurried off out the road to catch all the girls that had passed me while I was swimming on the river. No. And I turned around because I realized I forgot my bib, and I tripped over my bike, and I didn't actually realize at the time what I'd done, but I later learned I don't know how I did it, but I had sliced my Achilles on my cog.
Oh no.
So I finished this race feeling like, and I feel a bit silly about it now, but I finished feeling really dissatisfied because I had massive expectations and it didn't go to plan. And then I spent the next 6 weeks in a cast.
Oh no.
Losing all this hard-earned fitness.
Yeah, you must have been going quite well before you got into the boat, were you?
Day one. Yeah. Day one was good.
Yes.
Yeah, day one was good. I think
so you're winning day one, but it got away from you on day 2, and that makes it harder. Yeah. And that's one of the things about this event is that there's so many things that can go wrong, and every time you turn up to it, you learn something different. You're like, all right, okay, put that down to learning again, sort of thing, as you build up the experience over time. So let's fast forward to 2024, the start of this year. How was your boat for a start?
My boat, yeah, well, good. Yeah.
Working order? Okay, good.
I mean,
That's good stuff.
maybe there's maybe still some lessons to be learned there, but yeah, I'd my boyfriend had upgraded his boat, so I'd stolen his old one.
Okay. Okay. Yep. That works.
Yeah.
That's
But
good.
it worked. It was in very good working order, and I'd had it checked over at Top Sport, and I'd done all the things. I'd ticked the boxes. Yeah.
Good. And you knew the history of it. It had one little old lady owner, so that was okay, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how was your, like, we want to know about training and preparation and things. So what sort of things, what were you doing in the lead up to this race that obviously that you've developed and learnt over time to make sure that you can stand on the start line and have an awesome day? So specifically thinking now, August, we're about 6 months or so out when people will be watching or listening to this. So what are some things that you have learned across the sort of early season training? What are you doing currently around that?
I guess early season, I'm trying to build a really good base. I'm not doing anything too heroic, but I'm trying to be as consistent as I can. I'm also trying to keep it really fun and fresh because the race is a long way away. And there's a lot of things to fine tune, but and I mean, Hannah doing the 2-day wasn't really into that, but Hannah doing the longest day now really is. But also I don't like to get too carried away with it too soon. I guess thinking about though what gear you're going to have on race day, getting it sorted early. That's I've learned that lesson the hard way.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And so from here on in, and how do you break your training down? When are you getting on the course? When are you doing sort of some of those more coast to coast specific sessions? At the moment, it's just being out there, adventuring, doing fun stuff. But when does it start to get a bit more specific to you to say, right, let's get down the river, let's get over Goat Pass and go for a paddle as well, and do your biking and running and stuff?
Yeah, I guess, well, especially the last couple of years when I've raced elite, I've probably really dialed up from like November onwards. Spring. But a lot of that too is for me sort of tying in with my work life. And yeah, I think, I mean, especially when you're starting out, I think get on the course as soon as you can, because just go and see what it's like. Then you can structure your training around that. I think it's like how I train now. Like I know the course and I've been over it a lot of times. And personally, I don't like to get too carried away with doing it millions and millions of times. I find that a bit exhausting, or a bit the same. But other people might think that's the way to go. But then also that's a few years of experiencing it too. And I think, maybe now I worry a bit less about specifically at this time of year. I'm just working on my fitness base. But when I was starting out, I just trail runned and I rode my bike and kayaked whenever I could on moving water. And you can't really, you need to nail that down before.
Yes, you go too specific. Yeah, 100%. So how do you, like you mentioned, you're a vet. How do you manage work, especially over those summer months, and trying to tie in your training and make sure things happen? How does that all go for you? And balance. It's about balance. Isn't it?
Yeah, that is about balance. Well, the last couple, I guess the very first time I did the 1 day, I thought, how on earth could I train for something like that and work full time? I couldn't see how that could be possible. So I didn't work at all from I think mid-October until after the Coast to Coast. So that was the first time I raced the 1 day. That year I won the Open and I was 5th woman. Yeah. But in the last 2 years, I guess I've probably, I do work. I can't afford to do that every year. But I cut down my hours a little bit. I just work 4 days a week. And I think that it seems to work pretty good. Be a nice balance between I can't train as much as I did that very first time. But it kind of keeps me in check, keeps me in a routine. I can get more hours in by taking, I take every like Wednesday off through November to February. And so it allows just one other day that you can train longer, I guess, and not have to deal with the work in between.
Yeah,
or,
good. And that's good,
mostly the uncertainty of work, probably too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And your job could be reasonably physical as well, I take it, some days. So that's something to factor in there as well. But nice to be able to put that longer day, middle of the week. So you have 2 work days to kind of chill out a little bit and hopefully recover from the training that you're doing. And hopefully be useful at work as well.
Yeah. Well, that's a big one, isn't it? Yeah, at the end of the day, that's what pays me. So there's no point cooking myself before work and turning up with glazed over eyes and not being able to do my job. So, yeah.
So just reviewing 2024, what were your highlights of that event, and is there any sort of key learnings you took away from that compared to what you were doing when you started out in the first couple of 2-day events that you did?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, they're just like leagues apart, aren't they? Yeah, totally different. I knew what I was in for. I'd had a very structured plan from about, I don't know, May. I'd been very consistent. So
in the actual event itself, highlights of the actual event. Yep. And then were there any sort of takeaways that, I reckon I could still tidy that up?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, it'd be really great if I didn't come out of my boat. Yeah.
Oh, do we have a swim this year?
Yeah.
Oh, Hannah.
Just the one?
Just the one.
Silly, can I ask, was it a silly mistake, or was it something that caught you out, or?
Yeah, I couldn't even really tell you. Silly mistake.
1 minute we're up, 1 minute we're down.
Yeah. It's amazing what can happen when when you're tired and fatigued.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much.
Yeah, nice. So let's highlights of the event. Well, obviously, did you? So tell us about that. Yeah.
It was a fantastic day. I had a lot of fun. I think I went into that day thinking, I thought, you know what, you've done the prep, you've done everything you can, you've ticked the boxes, you've learnt so much from all these races, all the things that have gone wrong. Just have fun.
Yeah.
I think the prior year I did have fun, but I was really suffering out there. And I remember my support crew asking me as I ran down to my boat, how are you going? And I just sort of thought, I don't know, I'm going.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm doing this. This is really hard. Maybe, and it was sort of caught up in maybe a little bit of expectation, or wondering whether you deserve to be there, or whether I think 2024, I just thought, hell yeah, I deserve to be here and I'm going to have a great time.
Good on you.
And I did.
And you raced much better as a result of that as well, clearly, with a smile on your face. Do you have a strength? How do you get and if you do have a strength, how do you get the balance right between the 3 disciplines for you?
I don't know that I do have a strength, actually. And getting the balance right is really, really difficult. I think your strength can change through the years too, because you have 1 year and you think, wow, I did an awesome run. That's my strength. Maybe I'm going to dial that down and paddle heaps more. And then next thing you know, you're not quite so good at running.
Yes.
So, and then also, you might think, well, paddling's my weakness. So you work really, really hard at it. And well, I probably still feel like it's my weakness, but I also feel like I've made incredible gains in my paddling because I have put a lot of time into it. I think the last 2 years I have been pretty even split across the 3 disciplines, to be fair. I definitely wasn't in my earlier days, and because it was hard, I didn't necessarily have facilities to paddle a lot, particularly. Whether now I live in Methven, it's great. We have this canal and you can rain on it, paddle on it, rain or shine or flooding rivers, it doesn't really matter. And so, yeah, everyone's got different challenges, don't they? What's available to them.
Yeah, I like that though. As you said, like obviously your strength is you don't really have a weakness, but as you say, like as I put more effort in, those strengths and weaknesses go up and down, and they do float a little bit, don't they? Which is part of the fun of trying to figure out the jigsaw puzzle of actually training for this thing.
Yeah, it's huge. There's a lot of different things you can train for, isn't it? You can train for fast running and trail running and road riding and time trialing and kayaking and transitioning and strength. Oh God, we need more days in the week.
It is such a complex race, though, isn't it? Like that's what we know, and only time and experience and a numerous amount of events under your belt do you actually start to really get a grasp on how to really conquer the thing. You know, those that are watching, and one of the reasons we do this is to try and help bring those new people some sort of understanding about actually how complex this race is and how many things can go wrong and all of those sort of things. So it's been great to hear, Hannah, I'd say probably in the opening piece, some of the things that happened, I suppose, in your first 2 day, because that we look at you as, I suppose, elite athlete Hannah Lund, who got second runner-up to Simone Mayer at the 2024 longest day world champs. But the real Hannah Lund is just like everybody else out there. She's just like all of those new people. She didn't know she needed 2 pairs of shoes and that one pair wasn't going to cut it, and all of those other things that, you know, are really, sometimes we forget that everybody starts somewhere, and how good it is to hear those genuine stories that aren't even all that long ago. And so, because you've come a long way in a very short amount of time in the sport, to be fair. So I suppose the closing question is that we were second last year, or this year still technically. What will the new year bring, and will we see you on the top step of the longest day podium? Is it too early to tell?
Yeah, it was probably too early to tell, but I wouldn't count me out.
How about that?
Yeah, good stuff, Hannah. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your insights. Lots of learning to share, so I really appreciate that. I'm sure those listening and watching will appreciate that as well. So yeah, all the best, and we will see you in China, off to race there in a month or so's time. So how good is that?
Yeah, woohoo! See you there.
Great fun. Yeah, well done.
Hey,
cheers,
Hannah.
Hannah.
Thanks, Hannah.
Thanks, see ya.
Ah, yes, little birdie tells me you're going to China too, Richard.
Yeah, to suffer in the heat. Yeah, it sounds fun, doesn't it? There'll be a lot of suffering going on. Don't worry about
that. Probably a fair bit to unpack after that little, such a good chat there with Hannah, and so many cool things. Boat choice. She tried to go to obviously a much faster boat, wasn't probably quite there, or wasn't the right boat. I think that's right. A humongous choice for somebody is boat choice, and especially at my level in the basics. If we, she said, what she say her strength was that she doesn't have any weaknesses. My weakness is that I don't have any strengths.
But they're all even though. They're all even. That's good. That's good.
But boat choice. Hey, a safe boat is going to be faster sometimes than a fast happy boat, right?
That's right. Well, it's the same thing I did. First 2 day, I did an Esprit, paddled that and paddled it well, fine. The second time round, I was like, okay, it's the same as Hannah. Let's go and be competitive at this. And was in back in those days an Evolution Classic, and my whole training time was like, if I can just paddle down the rough bits, the flat bits are going to be so good. But I was like coming up with ways of how to put like pontoons off the back of it so I could sort of get through the rapids okay, and then can I lift them up and where we go again? It's like, because that's how nervous you are. Like, I know I can kind of paddle it, but I'm not sure, and it becomes a real risk. So yeah, I guess it depends on that risk reward thing, how much you're willing to gamble. But obviously the best thing that Hannah did was she got down in that boat down the river so she could figure out was that right for her or not. And I think that's one thing that we can think fast boat, but we've got to actually get it on the water and see how you cope with it alongside those river reading skills and paddling skills as well.
Probably another great tip there, in her race this year, to become runner-up, she did have a spill in the boat. She did have a swim, and potentially maybe that was a fatigue thing. And that sometimes we miss that piece sometimes in training as well, getting ourselves, we've talked about this many times, but getting ourselves to that fatigue level, because decisions happen quite differently when you're fatigued than when you're fresh, and you just go like, well, today I'm going to go training, I'm going to go and paddle the gorge, and that's all I do, and tomorrow I'm going to run over here or whatever. But once you start putting all those pieces together and really stretching the boat out, as per se, in that fatigue level, it's a good zone probably to get yourself into a couple of times to understand how you cope with fatigue.
Yeah, I think that's like part of this event, 2-day, longest day, whatever you're doing. You need to do a few things that are just a little bit crazy out there. It could be a 12-hour row gain that you go and do, sort of thing, on your feet for all day with some friends. That could be a good option. It could be that you do a big paddle mission somewhere, but it doesn't have to be super hard, fast and racing. It's actually, how do I cope being out there for a long length of time, and how do I keep concentrating when there's some technical skills required, be it biking or running or kayaking, whatever you're doing. But yeah, I think that's a really good tip, and that's something to factor into sort of early summer, late springtime, to sort of maybe put a date in the diary to go and do a bit of a mission with a couple of mates.
Absolutely. Now, a couple other things, and we're going to bang on about this just about in every episode, although at some point it'll probably get too late. But if you're new to this whole circus, and I'll call it a circus, it's a great big moving roadshow over the February weekend. But if you're new to this and you're coming and you've got an entry in, there's a few things you need to think about. One, start looking for accommodation in Greymouth or within the vicinity there. It is very, very tight on accommodation. So please don't think that you will just, in a month or two time, we'll do some training now and we'll put the logistics of everything else. We'll deal to that later on at the last minute. You need to sort of bar all the things that need starting sort now. The accommodation thing, of course, equipment, support crew, all of those things. Grade 2, pretty important that you should have your grade 2 by now if you've got an entry in.
Or a booked in. One of those two.
Yeah, that's right. So make sure you get that. What else we got? Road cycling. Inevitably, day one, if you're 2 days, day one, or even in the longest day, you're going to end up in a bunch. You're going to do some bunch riding on that first leg, and you want to be a part of that bunch. We've, again, drummed this 1,000 times. You want to be in that bunch. You want to have a whole lot of other people doing the work for you and not having to burn WhatsApp for no reason. So, but there's a skill to that as well, Richard, being in the middle of a bunch.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And that's, we've talked to Glenn about it at the previous podcast. It's actually probably one of the most dangerous parts of the race where you're actually likely to, or not likely, but could get hurt. So, and it affects other people's races as well. So yeah, get along. Riding with one or two other of your mates doesn't really cut it. You've got to go and ride in a group, be it your local cycling club, which would be awesome. It's something we've done for a number of years with TeamCP. So every Wednesday night is during spring and summer is a group ride. So get along to that. Come and join us. Come and meet a whole bunch of other people that are doing the coast to coast as well. Last year through January, we had sort of 40, 50 people turn up sort of every Wednesday, which is amazing because you get such a variety of abilities that we can sort of group people together and just develop those skills and learn. So what I'd like to see is I don't want to see you in January. I want to see you in October and November and December. So you've got time to actually build those skills and learn about that. So you can actually really enjoy that part because it's so good. A couple of years ago in that first cycle leg, the sun was just coming up. We had a group of like 15 guys and there was yeehaws in the bunch. It was so good. So that's the sort of thing that we want you to be able to experience as well.
Yeah. And maybe again, speaking locally, some local cycling clubs that you've got, like we're lucky here in Canterbury where we are. We've got the Leaston Cycling Club. We've got the Tynwald Cycling Club in Ashburton. And why I say go and do some of them is because obviously you race, you put a number on, so the anger, you're always going to go harder in that. But you're going to put yourself most likely in a bunch of people that you may not be around, because cycling in a bunch is about trust as well. It's about knowing. Often we go riding with our friends, and we know the same people we ride with every Saturday or whatever, and we pretty much know what they're going to do within, and it's quite a comfortable place to be. On Coast to Coast Day, you will be in a bunch with a whole lot of people, no doubt, you've never met before, and you have no idea of their cycling skill or capability. So great to get out and mix that up as well, and just see how it happens, and when you're not in a controlled environment.
Absolutely. No. Yeah, it's great call, Angus. So yeah, sort your cycling out. Don't just assume that I can get my bike out of the garage and just go and ride it. My first bunch ride is coast to coast. Let's make sure that everybody stays safe on race day. They're thinking of kayaking in regards to some tips around that. Kayaking is really a big bit about technique. So technique, be it on the river, skills on the river, and actually learning to hold that wing paddle properly and how that goes. Watch the Olympics. How amazing is that? Like just watching that K4 burn down the course. It's just looks so effortless and easy, doesn't it? Until you actually have to try and do it yourself.
I was just thinking that you said about kayaking. What's your tip? My tip is don't do it. Get an Olympic paddler to do it for you.
Is that what you've organised, Angus?
There's a hot tip. Unfortunately, there's not many of them to go around, and we've got one booked already. So,
there might be another one with a few gold medals jangling around the neck. There's probably a few there. So it might be worthwhile getting on the old trying to stalk and hunt these Olympic gold medalists down to see if you can get them involved in your team. Surely, like in a Olympic cycle, the February just after the Olympics is a pretty nice time to sort of freshen up a little bit before you go again. So if you can get Lisa Carrington on your team, I know we might have problems, Angus. You might need to do a bit more bike riding.
The only reason we've got an Olympic paddler is because we need to make some time back up from my cycle.
It's no excuse for not training though, Angus. You're still going to do a bit. I don't want to have to...
I thought, oh, look, bike race, got to do this. Here's a good excuse. So the old M+1's already come along, and we've already hung a new bike.
So you've got a new bike
ready for it. So
that'll make me faster.
Yeah. Made me feel good about it anyway. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. It's all about the feel, 100%. I just don't want to have to put up with when Nate comes off the bike before you. That's what I just don't want to have to put up with that.
No chance.
We'll take that cut. I'll share that with him. We'll enjoy that. No, good stuff. Just going back to a couple of quick tips that we've been emailed actually while the show's been going on. Kent mentioned camping at Klondike Corner. We've done a bunch of that, haven't we, over the years? And what's the best option? I have to say, if you had a choice, I'd go camper van, because one of the things at Klondike Corner is all your support crew get up at 3-4 stupid o'clock and have to get their boats down to the river. And a camper van is A, warmer, and B, it's a bit more soundproof than the old tent. So if you've got that as an option, that does go really well. But nothing wrong with the old-fashioned camping as well. It might be that you just throw some earplugs in there as well to help you through the night as you go. So that's what I'd recommend in that regard.
I also think if you are camping, that take an extra blanket or two, and not necessarily to put on you, but to put under you, between the ground and you. It's quite cold, it's quite dewy there, and if it's raining, it's going to be wet. Sometimes that extra bit of blanket on the bottom layer will actually help that sleep and that body recover a whole lot better.
Yes, 100%. That's right. Angus, to wrap up, any sort of other key tips, key points? What's your training going to look like over the next month before we catch up again on another Coast to Coast, Kathmandu Coast to Coast podcast?
Well, I think my number one training tip is do some training. That'll be tip number one.
And this is what Hannah mentioned as well, is consistency. And I think that's what you're angling towards earlier on in the show, is that you probably haven't been that consistent. You've done some great bike rides at the weekend, but it's the one or two during the week that you've missed out on, eh?
And look, I've done, and we're about to go on a little gravel 4-day event, which is going to be just nothing more than good for the soul. So it's a 4-day. We're going on a 4-day gravel ride up around the the top of the north, and so I've done 2 days of two separate days of training. So I've trained 50% for this event we're going on, Richard. I thought I've done pretty well there.
2 days of training for a 4-day event. That's pretty good.
It's pretty good, I thought. But what I have decided is in those 2 training days that I did do, those 2 beautiful days out on our Banks Peninsula, is how much I still love riding a bike. And I think that was probably one of the best things that came from those 2 days, is actually the realization is actually I do actually still love riding a bike. It put some motivation back in me to get on it a whole lot more. So Hannah said earlier, you've got to enjoy doing it. She doesn't just run the pass day after day after day, because that'll take the fun out of it and things. So it was great. So that's good. That's a good start. I'm just praying for some warmer weather shortly, mate, and maybe some time at home will be good too. But
yeah,
we'll be good.
That is a challenge for you. You do travel a lot with the work, so that does make it pretty hard. But we'll look forward to seeing if you still enjoy riding a bike after 460 Ks over 4 days towards the back end of the week, Sunday week. This time next week, we'll have to check in to see if you still enjoy riding your bike, Angus.
Absolutely. I can't see why we won't, but and it'll come to a point that I'm going to have to. Right now, we'll put some base miles on. We'll get ourselves used to a bit of suffering. We'll just turn some pedals, and then as we start getting along, probably the next month or so, we'll start trying to tune in a little intensity into it, some hill reps and things like that, just to try and build some intensity into the legs, and we'll just tune it away there. I'm lucky. I'm lucky because I've only got one sport one discipline to train for, so there really is no excuses there. Whereas a lot of you people out there have got all 3. You've got to work your way through too.
That's right. But goal achieved from my perspective, and the goal of this podcast was to get Angus fired up about doing some more bike riding. So clearly that's job done. Big tick.
How's the running going then?
We'll just move right along, shall we?
Still like riding the bike.
Yeah, exactly. Nice.
Hey, look, that's probably us for episode 2 of season 6 of the Coast to Coast podcast. Of course, the official Kathmandu Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by TeamCP, your endurance coaching specialists. It is always our privilege to be here to chew the fat, to bring some good chat to you people, to try and inform and hopefully, help you get from the West Coast to the East Coast come February. Along the way, Richard, we've had, I don't know, we must have had some success out of this along the way.
Surely. Well,
somebody must be able to ring in and tell us. Somebody must be able to dial in or message and say, my success was all on you.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I guess we'll check that success come 2025 when you stand on the start line, Angus, and we'll measure it that way.
So true.
Yeah,
so once again, thank you for joining us. A big thanks to the Kathmandu Coast to Coast for having us, to you, Richard, to Team CP, to everybody out there for listening. Stay tuned. We'll be back with episode 3 sometime soon, and we'll do it all again.
Good job. Well done. Cheers, Angus. Thanks, team.